way back when, and when this was developed for a community safety building, we were really appreciative with the borough. And this is something that can be made right simply because the borough, we need a community center, and this is what the borough works for the community to speak up. And that's all part of the chain of government. And that's why it's important that we have a community building. So when you look at the past history of Lake Louise, it's important that the borough represent us by letting us have a community safety building. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else present that would like to speak?
My name is Gary Swan. I'm a long-term Lake resident and borough resident, also here in Wasilla. I've had property on Lake Louise since 1979, and for many years was one of the volunteer firefighters with the Lake Louise Volunteer Fire Department. The transition of this property over to the capability for the community to have this facility and be able to combine the snow machine club's equipment and the firefighting equipment, which often are used together, in one place is a very positive move, provided that this platting can happen. I'm fully supportive of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else present that would like to testify? Is there anybody online?
If anyone online would like to speak to this current case, which is Lake Louise Snow, case number 2025-167, please press *3 now, and we will unmute your line. And that's no one.
Seeing none, I am closing public hearing. And I lost my paper. Would the petitioner like to speak?
Hi, Lisa Gray. I'm the land management agent for the borough. I would like to clear up the setback violation that we're creating by the right-of-way that we're creating. We're going to resolve that. In fact, the borough has already issued a right of entry for the community association to work on removing that. When the surveyor goes back, he'll confirm that. The copy I have has that condition on it, but my understanding is there's some copies out there that doesn't. The staff report was changed to add that in there. So I don't know what copies you have, but number 3 has that requirement, and we will comply.
Could you comment on the owner of Lot 6? Forgive me, I forgot your name, and what he was talking about with the property line going up the peninsula and him wanting to swap land?
Yeah, so that is the borough lot is a government lot, and so it was created that way. It's where the boundary of the lot is that we have. And so he had contacted land management. We didn't want to combine it with this project because then that brings another person in. I don't know if he has financing, which would require acknowledgement from a lender. And the project we were working on was to divide it for the purpose of conveying it to the association. I have talked to him, and I took it to the land management manager to see if there was something we could do, and we weren't interested in subdividing our property to give part of it to the adjacent property owner.
So there's no resolution with this?
I could talk to my boss and see if they would consider it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I have a question. This straight line that we're talking about with lot 6, was that an existing line prior to this?
Yes, the boundary is not changing to the parcel.
Okay.
We're just adding a line to create 2 lots.
This one here?
Yeah, so that,
Okay,
Is
so
borough
everything else
property-
was
that-
pre-existing and,
yes, the peninsula is borough property. It has been borough property since we received it from the state of Alaska.
okay. That answers my question.
Thank you, Sandra. Carla?
I have a question for that gentleman in the back. I'm not quite understanding what you're saying about your strip of land. And
So the strip of land is, as you can see on the map, is right against the lake in my property. So if you look at the smallest portion of that, it's probably 10 feet. It's totally useless for anybody to use. And plus, a lot of the time, that is actually covered in water. So my question was to Lisa is, if it's so important for them to keep that strip of land, why not just trade it off for me for the bottom portion of my property? It's a straight trade. They're not losing any footage or anything. It's still the same. But the problem is that because that goes straight across the peninsula, just like the shed moving, I had to move the shed like 15 to 30 feet away from that peninsula.
We'll have to
because
have
of
the
that line.
discussion
Yeah,
later.
we've closed the public hearing portion, so having this gentleman up before is not appropriate at this time.
Okay. All right, so this was my only opportunity to speak to you guys. So I couldn't get anywhere else but this time. So I understand it's closed and I'll step back, but just consider it, a trade for a trade. That's all.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I'll consider a motion from the board.
I'd like to move that we accept the subdivision plat of Lake Louise Snow. I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry. There we go. I move to approve the preliminary plat of Lake Louise Snow, Section 28, Township 06 North, Range 07 West, Seward Meridian, Alaska, contingent on staff recommendations 1 through 6.
Thank you very much. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion? Mr. Wagner?
Thank you. I think that since we do have a discrepancy on what was provided to the board prior to the meeting and what is in the public packet that is provided, that we should probably officially adopt or at least list that condition of approval number 3 states that a new as-built will be required or a stamped signed letter by the surveyor that the plat has no setback violations, so that we are clear that that is included, and that should remove any problem with the public or any issue that might be created by not notifying the public of said condition of approval prior to approving the subdivision. So I think that would be an amended motion or just stating it. I'm not really sure since it's on our paperwork, but either way. That might be all we need right there, is just mentioning the fact that it is on this paperwork. Ms. Krieger did state number 6, that there were 6 conditions of approval. I think my reading it into the record shows what that is.
Any objection to that? Okay, any further discussion?
as in going back to that gentleman, that kind of a discussion?
No, public hearing's closed.
Oh, well, okay.
It's just discussion between us.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Gary, does this,
Oh, Mr. Liebing.
We probably should have had you.
I'm abstaining from the vote, but I can't participate in a question.
Any further discussion? Any objections to approval? Seeing none, motion's been approved. Okay, we are on Chopper Industrial Park. The request is to create 10 lots from parcel 117N01E04C030 to be known as Chopper Industrial Park, containing 15.2 acres plus or minus. The proposed Chopper Circle is to serve as a private road, providing access for all proposed lots. The property is located south of East Mountain Heather Way, west of North Blue Ridge Circle, and east of North Higher Road, within the southwest quarter section 04, Township 17 North, Range 01 East, Seward Meridian, Alaska, in the South Lakes Community Council and in Assembly District Number 3. To the board. Do you or any member of your immediate family have a substantial financial interest in any property affected by this decision, or will you recognize a foreseeable profit as a result of this decision? Seeing none, have you received or otherwise engaged in ex parte contact with the applicant, other parties interested in the application, or members of the public concerning the application or issues presented in this application, either before the application or during any period of time the matter is submitted for decision outside of the public process provided by the borough? Are you able to be impartial in this decision? Seeing an affirmative, Madam Secretary, the mailing, please.
There were 119 public notices mailed out on December 22nd, 2025.
Thank you. Staff report.
Thank you, Kamen Reynolds, planning staff. I believe we moved to postpone this to February 19th due to Chopper Circle not actually being private.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
We had an issue with the road. It is not supposed to be a private as proposed. It is supposed to be a public road, so we were moving to postpone to February 19th.
February 19th?
Yes.
Okay. Questions for staff? Is the petitioner or the petitioner's representative present and like to speak? Okay, I'm going to open public hearing. The petitioner's online. Oh.
To the person who has requested to speak, assuming you are the petitioner, I'm going to unmute your line and give you 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Craig Bennett. I'm the petitioner's representative, and we agree with staff and agree with the postponement.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
You're welcome. Not at this time. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open up public hearing. Is there anyone present that would like to speak?
Hi, my name's Jean Holt, and I live down the street at Chelan Spur. And over the years, since I've been there since '81, I'm concerned about the private road access from Palmer-Wasilla Highway. And
It's not going to be a private road. We're talking about industrial park?
yes,
Okay. There was an error made. It's not going to be a private road.
okay, well, whatever road it's going to be, what will it be? You can't answer, right?
The public.
Okay, well, anyway, I'm concerned because of some of the, like Birch Tree and how they went around about this. I just like the idea of postponing it till February 19th to make sure it's clear. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak? Anybody online? Seeing no one online, I am leaving public hearing open. And the petitioner, do I have to ask that again? No, he was online. Okay. Can I get a motion?
Madam Chair, I move for the continuation of the preliminary plat of Chopper Industrial Park, Section 04, Township 17 North, Range 01 East, Seward Meridian, Alaska, to February the 19th, contingent upon these staff recommendations.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Oh,
I believe the plating board is being held on the 18th for that meeting because the assembly chambers was being used otherwise.
thank you, Matthew.
I would accept that friendly amendment to change the date of that.
Okay. Date has been changed. Okay. Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion passes. Okay, next we have Resolution 26-01, a resolution of the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Plating Board recommending approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 43.20 subdivision development standards to allow lots to be reduced to 30,000 square feet within single-family residential land use districts. To the board. Do you or any member of your immediate family have a substantial financial interest in any property affected by this decision, or will you recognize a foreseeable profit as a result of this decision? Seeing none, have you received or otherwise engaged in ex parte contact with the applicant, other parties interested in the application, or members of the public concerning the applications or issues presented in this application, either before the application or during any period of time the matter is submitted for decision outside of the public process provided by the borough? Seeing none, are you able to be impartial in this decision? An affirmative. Madam Secretary, the mailing report, please. Oh, there isn't one. You're throwing me off on the different thing here. Okay, so what's the next thing staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Alex Strawn. I'm the planning director for the borough, and I prepared this ordinance for Assemblymember Sumner. You read the memo that we normally read for quasi-judicial items. I will say that you don't have to be impartial in this decision. You're welcome to be totally partial, and you're allowed to have external contact, as this is a legislative document, so a little bit different than quasi-judicial matters. I guess, so as you all are aware, this was This legislation was referred by the Assembly for 90 days to the Planning Commission. We had put originally that it would to go to the Plating Board and the Planning Commission. However, when the motion was made to refer, it was only referred to the Planning Commission. However, I did go ahead and send it to you. It was a little bit last minute, and I apologize for that. We had prepared a resolution in support of this ordinance that was ultimately failed, and a new one was adopted, essentially saying, hey, we would like some more time, so that when it went to the Assembly, they referred it back for another 90 days to the Plating Board specifically. And so here we are. I already gave a staff report on it. I will say that, this ordinance has not been without its controversy. I have done a lot of thinking about this ordinance, and really, I'd say the more that I mull it over and think about it, the more I like it, actually. And that might create some shock and awe. I know that 30,000 square feet is less than 40,000 square feet, where we already have a difficult time sometimes placing wells and septics because they get pinched off by what their neighbors do. And if you think about right now, when a subdivision occurs, if all the lots get sold off, then essentially the first person who develops on their land and puts their septic system where they want to, they are now creating ripple effects across the rest of the subdivision and dictating where they're going to have to put their wells and septics. And some people can get a little bit pinched off. It's kind of a haphazard type of development. With this, it does allow a carrot, which we have very few carrots here at the borough. I will say that from a planning perspective, we want denser housing because it's less road miles per tax dollar. It's less, you can get fire service for less if you put more people in. It's overall better for the taxpayers to have more people put into a smaller area. And it also helps with affordable housing. I know that people want their rural lifestyle and to maintain the character of larger lots, but there's plenty of that to be had within the borough as well. This requires that at the platting process, the developer has to show on the plat where their leach field is going to go, where their septic system is going to go. And so that allows some certainty into the future. So it requires that they show on the plat where it's going to go, and then it also requires that they zone it single family residential. So if we think about you're purchasing a piece of property, you know where your neighbor's septic system is going to go, so you know where your well can go or where it can't go. So it actually is a little bit more orderly development, and there's also some certainty that it's not going to be like a multifamily or commercial type development, which might have different types of impacts. So from that perspective, I think it's a pretty good step in a good direction. And I know that's probably going to upset some people because there's people that are adamantly against this, but that's my opinion, and I'd love to answer any questions you have regarding that.
Mr. Levy?
Where is that requirement spelled out in the ordinance? Because I don't see it in our packet. Where is it at?
Which?
Whereas you could be bought.
Okay, thank you.
For the septic that's going to be placed by the developer or planned to be placed by the developer, is that test hole for that spot where that septic is going to be, is that a requirement of doing so?
Yeah, so I'll read some of the provisions in here. So first, so each lot that is reduced has 10,000 square feet of contiguous usable septic area delineated on the plat unless served by a municipal or community wastewater system. So certification from a professional engineer licensed by the state of Alaska is submitted to the Planning and Land Use Department. The certification must confirm that the reduction in lot size in the reserve area of each septic system will meet all DEC requirements for conventional on-site wastewater systems, and site conditions in reserve areas are good as defined by most recent version of the ADEC on-site wastewater installation manual, section 2.6 evaluating site conditions table. accepting that percolation rates may be up to 15 minutes per inch. So it does require that they show 10,000 square feet and that it be certified by an engineer and shown on the plat.
What page is that on, so I can read it again real quick?
So it's on page 2 of 3 of the ordinance. So I don't have the packet pages on my version here, so I'm not sure what happened there.
It's on the screen, Chris.
I found it real quick.
Any other questions? Mr. Liebing?
Yeah, again, I don't have this ordinance necessarily in front of me, but how is this going to work in conjunction with the ordinance for the open space initiative, which already allows for a 30,000 square foot lot? Well, actually allows it, it says it, whatever the lot size requirement is, you can reduce it by 25% if you provide a common open space.
Yeah, so I think a developer would be able to pick either one.
But what would prevent them from doing both?
I think they could do both. If
Mike?
So you could potentially be looking at a 30,000 square foot lot, then additionally reduced by 25%?
I do not believe the intent is that you could go less than 30,000 square feet.
Then that would need to be addressed in the ordinance, I think.
Interesting, yeah.
I didn't catch that one. Mr. Wagner?
Mr. Strawn, so you're proposing that adding, I mean, you state that density will create a system where we have more people paying in, but aren't we also going to have more people using those services? Don't we add 10 days per trip for each lot we add to these roads, and thereby putting a lot more? I mean, potentially 25% more lots in a subdivision, we're going to increase that subdivision, that traffic rate by a significant portion. Now, that will require, in return, upgrades of roads that might have been residential to begin with, and now they're going to be a higher classification. I just don't see where this proposal will address any of the concerns it states. And I also find the whereas, the last one, the proposed standards support the goals and objectives of the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Comprehensive Plan. That's a pretty broad plan and quite a broad statement. And I think that throwing it out there, I would like to see that kind of fleshed out. Where does it meet these? And just stating it doesn't really give anybody an idea.
So, I mean, I think the question in there is, I think that's a valid point that yes, you're going to have more taxpayers per road mile, but there's going to be more vehicles on the road. And there's more taxpayers per fire service area, but there's going to be more calls for ambulances or fires. That's true. I think generally from a planning perspective, taxation in essence is an economy of scale, and the more people that you have in a given area, your tax dollars are going to go further than if you have people completely sprawled out.
Quick question. So what is Assembly asking us here? I mean, are they asking us to flesh out every single problem that this is going to cause? Because there's rabbit holes that can go down and go down. Or are they asking us, is the general idea of this ordinance a good idea?
Through the chair. So I think that's a great question. So most of the time, the plating board acts in a quasi-judicial matter where you're deciding on plating actions. In this case, you are in advisory capacity on a legislative matter to the assembly. So what your recommendations are is it can be we support it, we don't support it, or you're welcome to dive into the nuances and give nuanced recommendations.
Well, that's the thing. The nuance is we could be here for 3 days and still have nothing resolved. So it's, to me, talking to the board right now and talking to you, the feasibility is what's at question. And then the assembly taking that, deciding what they want to do, and then the borough mayor implementing a plan to get it done? I guess that's more of a statement than a question. I apologize.
I mean, I will say leading up to this meeting, I was very much hoping to have people reaching out to me, asking questions, maybe working on amendments or whatever it may be. I haven't heard from anybody. The time to work out a lot of these things is not sitting right here on the dais. The time is in between the meetings so that we can be effective here at the dais.
Mr. Levy?
When we hold a public hearing, sometimes we get large public responses and sometimes we don't. But if, in general, the two areas that the public has concerns about when platting is done is increased traffic in my neighborhood and concern over water resources. Obviously, there's rules and regulations that govern traffic. Roads have to be built to a standard. That's sort of covered in our building standards. However, water quality and water assurances are not. And it's the one place where we really can't do anything for the public. We have people come in and testify that their wells are already running dry. Please don't put 50 more next to me. I sympathize, but I can't do anything about it. I see this compounding that problem. Now we're adding 25% more wells potentially to these. So how, as a borough, are we going to address that without actually going in the opposite direction of our stated goals?
Yeah, so through the chair, you know, when I brought this to the Planning Commission, the very first question was, Alex, can you come up with an argument against this? And so I was on the spot to sort of play devil's advocate and steel man an argument against this. And I would say the greatest argument is that we're increasing the density of human waste that goes into the groundwater and increasing the density of straws or wells that we're putting into that same water. So I guess what I would say is what we have right now, you're right. We don't address water quality or quantity in our subdivision process. The rule that we have in place right now is a DEC rule that requires a 100-foot separation distance. And then fortunately, usually well depths are at much different depth than at septic system depths, which also adds like a vertical protection. That is, but you know, water quantity is not addressed. So yeah, I admit that in a world of limited resources, we have gaps in protection that we have for the public.
Playing devil's advocate here, isn't that buyer's preference and buyer beware?
Yeah, these are, you could say that, but somebody could be living there for 30 years and had great water, and then big development happens around them and they run out. That is probably something that happens. I know the state has water rights, but I don't know how effective that program actually is.
Things change, earthquakes happen. Water changes with earthquakes, right?
Indeed, yeah, and there's really just has to be a balance. We don't have unlimited resources. So that's why you guys are here. That's why the assembly is elected to come up with this balance between regulations and protection of the public.
I would like to state that we are not a buyer beware state. We are a full disclosure state, and that in any kind of capacity, something like that needs to be disclosed to a potential buyer. The more people know the risk of what they're getting themselves into, I think that needs to be something that is written in any sale of any of these parcels. That I know, well and septic tests, but just the risk factor, a mention of the risk factor of buying a 30,000 square foot lot. There's something there.
Is there a risk factor when an engineer has approved the septic is viable in that spot and a well is viable in that spot? Is that risk factor not on the engineer and his statements and certification?
So through the chair, I mean, that is a state licensing issue that I'm not an expert in. Certainly, anytime an engineer puts a stamp on a piece of paper, they are taking some amount of risk.
So just to have clarity, the borough is not presently monitoring septic systems, is it?
So that is correct. We rely on the DEC to manage and regulate septic systems.
But they're not monitoring the septic systems.
I
So
don't,
the borough generally has no clue, with all these tens of thousands of septic systems, how they're functioning.
I agree with that statement. We do not have the staff or the expertise to do so.
Another question. So who follows up with making sure the builder puts the building where it's supposed to be and not in the easements?
Yeah, so we do not have any sort of land use permitting process. We do not have as-built for all properties that are built. We do not have a building permit process. So if somebody builds in within the setback of an easement or within the easement itself, generally speaking, we find out about it when the neighbor essentially says, hey, my access is blocked off because my neighbor built their house too close or whatever it may be. Usually it is a complaint that comes into the borough and we investigate.
And what happens to the builder when they do this?
So, so that there's a question of what happens and what can happen, and they're different.
Okay, well, let's go with both.
Okay, so what can happen, the tools that we have available to us as code enforcement is if we have an as-built, whether it's provided to us or whether we have our own surveyor do it and it shows that there is a setback violation, then we generally will start with a warning notice and a communication with the landowner, letting them know they have a setback violation and giving them a certain amount of time to rectify it. Then if it's not rectified, we can issue citations. These are fines that are through the court system. I believe it's progressive. It's 200 and then 300 and then 500 or something like that.
It goes up to 1,000, is that correct?
It can be $1,000 per day, but usually our fines are $500 per day potentially. In reality, if we're issuing, we've done it before where we've issued a new citation every single day, and usually the judge will consolidate that all into one. So we generally will write a citation, go to court. We win, then we'll probably issue another one if they haven't resolved the issue. But past that, if citations aren't effective, because these are a lot like parking tickets, where the best we can do is we can garnish people's permanent fund dividends, and we do garnish people's permanent fund dividends. But if they maybe have back child support or somebody else is already garnishing the permanent fund dividend, that might be not effective. Or if they're out of state, it's difficult as well. So we can then, some of our most egregious cases usually have around 10 cases at any given time that we have forwarded to the attorney's office, and they can file for an injunction, which is requesting a court order that the violation be rectified, and that can be $1,000 a day that fine goes on. And if they ignore a court order, a lawful court order, then there's other penalties that come into play. So that's the first part of the question. What can we do? And I guess I'll say, we have, like I said, limited resources. We have 4 code compliance officers, and we have around 800 violations of code that we have currently open in the books. And so we have to prioritize our time. And so we are focusing on the most egregious of cases. Generally speaking, if it's a right of way or if it's a setback violation, we are focusing on those that actually have an encroachment into the right of way. And you'd be surprised at how many people actually have built or have something within the right of way that is obstructing either a road project or maintenance or the traveling public, the safety of the traveling public. So that's where our priorities are going to go. That's not to say that we don't have open code violations on people who have built too close to a right-of-way or too close to a lake or a side lot line, that we are actively pursuing compliance as well. They just take a lot of time because the court systems are a lot of times pretty slow to act, and so they can drag on for years and years.
It seems like that's been a particular issue. I was reading in the Planning Commission's meetings minutes in October, and they changed the sidewalk easement from 25 feet down to 10. And I read the reason for it is because there's people that their building is in the sidewalk easement. So they changed the code to accommodate the developers that messed up and built into the sidewalk easement. So
Yeah, so I'm happy to address that. That's a whole separate ordinance that has not been adopted by the Assembly. They actually, they postponed that one until, I believe, March. But, you know, that is for a lot of plating actions that were done, I think late 70s, early 80s. They would put on all the I think it was well intended, but they would put on like the lot lines, and Settlers Bay is a great example of this. They'd put on the side lot lines, maybe the rear lot lines, these 10-foot pedestrian easements, and they're not full 25 or full 60-foot like rights of ways. They are just these little walking easements, and or you'll have like a short little one that goes to a lake, and the intent of that ordinance was to reduce the setback to those easements only, not sidewalks within a right of way. And there was some confusion about that, and I've drafted a memo that's going to the Assembly regarding that it is really only for pedestrian or walking easements that are indicated on the plat. I think there's very few of them, and if you think about that, you'll have 10 feet for the easement itself, and then you'll have 10 feet on each side of that. So you would have 30 feet swath that pedestrians can walk through, which seems adequate if it's really truly for pedestrians only. So that was the point of that. That's a whole separate ordinance, but I'm happy to answer questions about that as well.
any further questions?
I don't really have a question, but kind of a comment. There's already methods in place if someone wants to open up a subdivision and have 30,000 square foot lots, they have to have a public water or public septic system in. And just for a comment, the way I'm seeing it, you narrow this down to say you can put a well and a septic on it. I mean, the amount of testimony that we've heard, like you pointed out, we have never heard anybody come and say, make the lot smaller. Everybody is worried about their water quality because I'm on a well and septic. I want my water to be good the whole time I live in my place. I don't want anybody encroaching on it, so
Is it, you need that, if you have a question, otherwise this will be during our discussion period. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, you're good.
Thank you. I'll be here if you want to call me back up.
All right. Public testimony. All right, opening for public testimony. Gary.
Yes, I'm back. I already signed in. I would ask, there's people here that are well-versed in soils that maybe instead of the usual 3-minute limit, you allow a little back and forth. This is legislative. It's not quasi-judicial. You would just have to suspend the rules for that. If it gets out of hand, you could just shut it down. It won't get out of hand. But anyways, I just want to go through a couple things. Chris, sorry. Mr. Chiavetti, sorry, Chris. had a good question, I thought, on are you going to dig the test hole in the septic area? I thought that was a good question, and that makes sense to me.
Well, and that, am I allowed to speak now?
Right.
It's public testimony, but
Do you mind if I talk?
I'll continue.
Well, and that was kind of my point, is you could have 4 lots in a row, bedrock at 8 feet, as Mr. Holler knows. Now that whole thing went out the window and it needs to be placed someplace else.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of thought the same thing. And then about the whole traffic thing, cars from 50, 30,000 square foot lots or 6,000 square foot lots, or 10,000 square foot lots, or 5-acre lots. 50 cars is 50 cars. Doesn't matter the size of the lot. That's what's going on the road. This is governed by the subdivision regulations. When you densify, and I believe in densifying because we just can't keep sprawling. But just so you know, that's my thought on it. This focuses, let me put it this way. Our road maintenance costs are per foot. So the more tax dollars you can get per foot, the cost goes down. That's all I want to say about traffic. Now, as far as the water quality, there used to be something in Title 27 that said if you had over a certain number of lots in your subdivision, that you had to run interference tests. In other words, you had to go off-site or drill a well close to the line. You had to run the well for a certain amount of time to see if it drew down the water from the other properties. And I would recommend that you suggest that that gets added into this ordinance so that's no longer an issue. There was something else too, but I can't remember what. Oh, as far as I know what it was, I'm sorry. As far as setbacks, there's setback violations, whether they're 5 acres or 1 acre or 20 acres. I worked on a 40-acre parcel once. The guy didn't put his house in his 40 acres. He had it over on the neighbors. So this doesn't change the amount of violations there's going to be. There's going to be violations no matter what. It's a fact of life, and the only control over it right now is the banks, really. You're not going to get a loan, and that's where it gets caught. Even owner finance people, if they're smart, they get a survey, and they find that out. So this isn't going to change the amount of setback violations. What would have changed the amount of setback violations would have been if the ordinance that didn't pass recently, which was the one to reintroduce the, where you would have to come in here and get information from the borough. It wasn't even a permit. That didn't pass. That would have helped a lot. So, maybe sometime the board could try to maybe bring that back. I don't know. It should have never went away. But anyways, that's all. And I would just ask that if there's, just allow a little leeway on some conversation, because there are, people that do this every day and they're here in the room. So thanks.
Thank you, Gary.
Like to make comment. My name's Jean Holt, and I'm in total opposition of this. I was at the assembly meeting when the assembly person brought this up. After working on water body setbacks for 39 years as just a citizen, and look where we got now, nada. This will just create another mess. And how long is the 40,000 square foot per acre or per lot been in? It's been in a long time. So why are you going to change something just for developers? Thank you for the opportunity to comment, and just sounds like another cluster to me. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, Mr. Sumner.
Yeah, I did sign up on the sign sheet. Maybe it was the wrong one, but Maxwell Sumner. So this, as you probably know, this is my ordinance. I introduced this ordinance. I actually also did, at the same time, introduce the land use review ordinance that Mr. LaRusso mentioned. And he's incorrect. It did not fail. It was postponed along with this ordinance. I was asked to come and explain the reason or the logic, or explain a little bit about this ordinance. And this came about, the reason why I decided to introduce this was that there's two conversations that I had with some people in the industry that drove this. I had a conversation with a realtor that was trying to sell a detached fourplex. I'm sure you guys have seen the detached fourplexes, which are essentially 4 single-family houses built on, one 40,000 square foot lot, 1 acre. And nothing in our rules and our multifamily rules and subdivision rules doesn't allow that. So, I would argue right there that we don't live in a world of single family 40,000 lots. We live in a borough that has 10,000 square foot for 40,000 square foot lots. And that's what the realtor said, was she said, well, I haven't been able to sell this thing because it really doesn't pencil at the cost that my seller wants, with the rents as they are. But it does pencil if I do a fractionalized ownership and split this into 10,000 square foot lots with a condo plat. I don't know if she did that or not, but that was her intent. And I realized there's nothing that keeps people from doing that. You could actually go and subdivide an entire subdivision of 40,000 square foot lots and then condo plat the whole thing and get multifamily permits and have an entire subdivision, 40 acres with 160 single family houses. So that was the one conversation it was one of the two conversations that spurred this on. And I said to myself, well, that's kind of ridiculous. Why do we allow that? But it's a whole different conversation. And then the second conversation was with a land developer who was doing half-acre lots in this core area. And I said, well, why are you guys doing half-acre lots in the core area? Isn't it expensive doing community water or community sewer? He did community water. And he said, yeah, it is expensive, but we don't live in a world where you can profitably develop in the core area 40,000 square foot single family lots. It's just too expensive. The market isn't there. People can't afford houses by the time you develop it and put a house on it. He said, really, the only way you can take a parcel in the core area and develop it profitably is if you do multifamily or you do a higher density single family. So combined with those two conversations, I realized, well, there might actually be a third option, right? If we can get away where we can preserve the single family housing, and make it so that it's affordable to create single family housing in the core area, so people don't have to drive all the way out to Willow to afford a new home. So that was basically the impetus for this was, preserving single family housing and making housing more affordable, but also doing it in such a way that protects surrounding property owners. If you look at the ordinance, it does not just give free rein for anyone to take a subdivision and make a 30,000 square foot lot. It only modifies the single family residential zone. So you would have to put these lots into a single family residential zone, which means that instead of potentially 4 lots or 4 houses per 40,000 square feet, you would have 1 house per 30,000 square feet. And I, for one, would much rather have a subdivision in my backyard that has 1 house per 30,000 square feet than 4 houses per 40,000 square feet. And I'm sure you guys are aware, since you're the plating board, we have a 40,000 square foot lot limit in Title 43, but you can reduce that down to 30,000 square feet if you dedicate open space. You can also reduce it down to 20,000 square feet if you have community water or community septic. I believe you can reduce it even further if you have both, but I might be wrong about that. As has been mentioned, more housing. A higher density means more people, but if you're going to have, it doesn't create more people moving to the valley just because you have smaller lots. Like, those people are going to move to the valley one way or the other. They're going to search for housing one way or the other. They're going to get housing one way or the other. The decision is, can we create affordable housing for these people that also has, in a community and in a way that is a community we want to live in. And I would argue that I would much rather have 1 house per 30,000 than 4 houses per 40,000. Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'd rather be working than here. My name's Joel Stefanski. I've been in the borough for 43 years. I've been a licensed contractor, state of Alaska, since 1984. I've been a clearing contractor. I worked for MEA for 28 years. So I have a lot of input on this, going from 40,000 square feet to 30,000 square feet. I don't see anything good about it. I bought where I live in 1987. It was a 2.4 acre lot. I liked the space. I paid $72,000 for that house, which was a piece of crap. excuse the language. And, but I wanted the space. I wanted to be able to pee outside the back door. People come to Alaska for space, not for density. All you got to do is fly over Phoenix, Seattle, Boston area and see how terrible greed has taken over. 40,000 square foot lot, a little less than an acre. An acre is 43,560 square feet. Most lots are rectangle shaped because you can fit stuff in there. You don't have as much frontage on the road. The setbacks, you got your 25-foot setback from the road. You got your 10-foot setback down the sides. Okay, so let's just say, you know, a square is about 208 by 208 would be an acre, but most of your lots are rectangles, just like this piece of paper. Okay, you go down to 30,000 square feet, you're knocking 25% of the square footage away. And I guarantee you the contractors aren't gonna lower their price on that lot. Say an acre goes for 100,000, they're not gonna lower it down to 75,000. I guarantee you they're not gonna do that. They're gonna still charge 100,000 for that, 25% less. So here's 40,000 square feet. Now we go down to 30,000 square feet. And then you have your setbacks, your legal setbacks. You know, I'm a visual guy. So you can see the size that you actually have to put your septic and well on that 30,000 square foot lot. Like I said, I've been around the valley a long time when there was less than 30,000 people here. Now there's over 110,000. My whole goal is setting the people up for success, not failure. We have no kind of tools, as Alex says, we have no tools to monitor the water systems. The Borough Comprehensive Plan says, policy LU4-1, identify and monitor, protect, and enhance quantity and quality of borough's watersheds, groundwaters, aquifers, and clean air resources. We're not doing that for the people that are gonna own these future lots. We're setting themselves up for failure. You know why? Because now when that septic system fails 30, 35 years from now, how are they going to move that leach field or possibly that septic tank? They're not going to be able to without violating code. You think about that, and that's a tragedy. And a lot of people, when they buy their homes, don't know, they don't think about 30, 35 years down the road. I've been living in the same house since '87, but I have enough space to redo my septic system. And we got to think about, you know, do we want to set these people up for failure or success? And I think it's a travesty that we would shrink our lots and cause all kinds of problems. And one of the other things I'm going to say that's, I'm not going to be a big fan, there is a developer in this room behind me that does things right, Kevin. Right? There's a lot of developers that take shortcuts on their site development. It's called stump dumps, okay? Every house is gonna have 2 or 3 sinkholes next to their driveway, next to their foundations. That eliminates another square footage. And because they say, well, it's cheap to do that, there's only a few contractors, and I've worked for all of them over the last, since 1984. Howdy, Big Dipper, Turner. And some of the guys do it right. They get rid of all their stumps and trees, but most of these contractors dig a hole right along the edge of the driveway, mine out the gravel if it's nice gravel, and they do a couple on either side of the foundation. You got an unusable piece of property that you can never build on. You know what it costs to dig that 20-foot hole by 15-foot wide? About $10,000 to dig those stumps out if you want to build an addition on the next to your house. And the other thing with MEA, I was the clearance supervisor for 9 years. I left there in 2017. I saw thousands of homes. I put in the underground overhead power service into the houses, clearing the easements, clearing the overhead or underground primary into these subdivisions. And MEA, a lot of times, because of the restriction of the lots, even at 40,000 square foot, they would have to trench the service, underground service on top of the leach field. So what do you do now when that leach field fails? And I talked to two very credible dirt contractors recently, said, well, the only option is to move it. You move the leach field. You don't want to dig up the old leach field if it failed. You know, you can replace the tank as long as it didn't contaminate the soil. You know, and these are all problems that real life problems that happen. And MEA, because of the restrictions of the lots, the topography challenges, we live in terminal moraine, people. Most of the lots on a flat piece of pancake, they have angulation on them. And so we're really setting ourselves up for failure here. And I totally disagree with some of the staff's comments about, you know, we need to have density. We don't need density. There's nothing good about this. We just had a recent subdivision that went in up towards Colony High School. And I spoke during that thing. You know, we got 20,000 square foot lots. They tied into the Palmer water system. Now we have an overload with septic systems on half-acre lots, less than half-acre lots. But the real problem on that is the developer actually told you guys that they're for low-income housing. Well, I questioned the engineer that represented the builder, and he says, oh, there's $600,000 or $700,000 homes. Those aren't low-income houses, you know, so don't fall for that line. The other issue those two subdivision on either side, 58 houses on one, 50 on the other, we have no turn lanes. We got up to 500 new people, and it's going to cause a real issue. And, you know, that's up to the state to you know, fix that area, but it's going to be a severe traffic issue when both subdivisions get built. And so I'm a big fan of not having dense these smaller lots, and there's nothing good about it. And I really appreciate you letting me go more than 3 minutes, because normally we can't do that. But you know, I got kids, I got grown kids here. I want them to be able to have the quality of life I've had. And it's not about how to make the big dollar and benefit the builders. And if I was king, I would definitely eliminate, just like Anchorage, get rid of the stump dumps. I've had people cry on my shoulder because their foundation is slumping away, you know, and that's something we need to work on, because you can do it right. You can haul that stuff away, and you can import your gravel. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening to me, and I hope pass on to the borough. I will be there, and I was just there last week and told them the same thing I told you. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Hi, my name's Kevin Sorensen. I have to tell you that I have not read this ordinance because I just heard about it. But as someone who has developed 30,000 square foot lots, maybe I can add something to the conversation. The first time I developed 30,000 square foot lots was in River Bend. The initial phase in River Bend, which was almost the whole subdivision, I had to deal with a big glacial kettle, a couple small glacial kettles, and a 50-foot bank on the Matanuska River. So the configuration was kind of you know, when you put curve radiuses in the road and things, and then you have the 40,000 square foot mandate, it made it difficult, because it's not like you can just go, this is 40,000, this is 40,000, this is 40,000, because you've got these configuration issues. So what I did instead is I put in a water system. So we only had to have 20,000 square feet. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever driven through River Bend, but you probably didn't drive through there and think, hey, this is full of 20,000 square foot lots. The truth of the matter is they're almost all over 30,000 square foot, but I don't know if any of them are 40,000 square foot. There's the ones on the east side that are close to 20,000. There's about a half dozen of those. But it's the way I solved the configuration problems I had to deal with. Now, when I went to do the last bit of it, which was creating where I had the big open space and I was creating 2 more lots. Then they had the ordinance to where I could do the name's escaping me. The open space ordinance. So I put 2 lots in there. I think they're both under 30,000. I don't remember for sure. It's been 20 years. I could do less because they were on the water system too. But when I did River Bend, it was a little bit different because I had to extend the water and all the road and all the utilities a half mile just to get to the property. So to do a water system in addition was just a lot of upfront cost. So I did the open space in Rocky Point. And there's a combination of 40,000 square foot lots and 20,000 or 30,000 minimum square foot lots. The interesting thing is the 30,000 square foot minimum lots actually have more space for the well and septic than the lots on the bluff. Because the lots on the bluff, part of the lot is down the bluff. And then you have the 50-foot setback for the septic. So really on top of the bluff, you only have about 25,000 square feet. They vary. So I think some are up maybe over 30, but they vary. But those are the 40,000 square foot lots. The 30,000 square foot lots are basically completely usable. In one place, I would have had to put a little cul-de-sac, but rather than put in that cul-de-sac, I was able to eliminate that cul-de-sac completely, get the same number of lots, and then have a 2-acre park that then the neighborhood has because of configuration issues. I like the flexibility. Now I say I like because I don't know that I'm going to be developing any more property. My wife seems to think I'm going to retire because she likes the stock market. Anyway, I would like to have options and tools to use. Now, as I think about it now and think about this ordinance, I'm thinking, well, why can't I have the option to address the biggest issue on the lot? What if I put in the wells for all the lots when I developed it? So you have the well in place, which is a critical one because then you know where the septics can be and how you're impacting your neighbors in addition. Because I've also developed lots that were basically paper plats that were legal non-conforming. So I've developed lots that were less than 20,000 square feet that have wells and septics. Because it's all about separations and soils. The big issue is separation soil. 40,000 square feet isn't something magic about it. I understand Joel's concern about you want space, but not everybody feels that way. I'll just leave it at that. So why can't I have the option, if I put in all the wells, and I don't have to have the little designated area, because you know when the buyer comes, they know where the well is, they know where their neighbors' wells are, you know what the wells do, because you're going to have a well log, you can have it tested. And of course, I almost do all my development in Springer recently, and so I have the advantage of not worrying about the water source because, well, the well I put in River Bend was a 400 gallon per minute well, so it kind of gives you the idea. So why can't you have that option? And why can't you, because, and then it gives me more tools that I can deal with configurations and the other regulations that you have to confront. And you can get better efficiency with roads and utilities and all those things. Like in that part in Rocky Point, I eliminated a road. I eliminated a cul-de-sac. I eliminated more runs of utilities, and I got the same number of lots, and the community got a park. So anyway, I don't want to take any more of your time because I haven't even read the ordinance, but I just wanted to throw that out there that I would love to have had that option as a tool to work with. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're gonna do a 15-minute recess, so everyone be back here in, I can't think right now, 15 minutes. 51. Okay, we're back on. Mr. Holler, right? No, who's? Mr. Holler.
Sorry, Kurt, my feet were floating. I wasn't gonna make it.
Is that on? Thank you. So Kurt Holler, Holler Engineering. Many of you know I get to work on a lot of these projects, and it's the same to me whether it has 30,000 square foot lots or 40,000 square foot lots. But I have a lot of comments, or a few comments here anyway. The first comment is we're already doing this. We have the open space initiative, and it actually works out pretty well. That works great on a property that has some usable or area that may be marginally usable or unusable. Maybe it's got a swamp on one end or something, or low area. And so I don't think you're going to see this proposed ordinance affecting those properties that already have a hill or something that could be made into open space. It would be the properties that were flat. In a general sense, we just don't have the issue. So when people are concerned about the water wells and stuff, well, the thing about the quantity of water, unless you live on the hillside of Eagle River and you get your water from a tiny crack in the rock 400 feet down there, your water comes out of your well and it goes through your house and right back into the ground 100 feet away from your well, and then it goes right back down to where it came from. And it's filtered by the 40, 50, 80 feet of soils that are, between your septic and where the water goes in your well, in most cases. It becomes an issue. There's a subdivision on Bogard Road called Willowa 2. We have quarter-acre lots that have wells and septics. The soils are very open sand and gravel, and the water table's fairly shallow. There you have increased nitrate levels. I know another subdivision in Peters Creek is the same way. But it's not an issue for most of the areas in the valley that we're doing. And it's less of an issue if you have silty soil, so anything down KGB Road or west of here. The silty soils filter it even better than sand does. My concern, so I think I'm in the same boat as everybody else. The last thing I want to see is undeveloped parcels, which are not very far from my house, have 4-plexes and 8-plexes and 12-plexes sprouting up on there. There's this concept of development pressure. It's a very real thing. Mr. Sumner touched on it. The people are coming anyway, and they are. And the question is, are they going to be living in single-family houses, or are they going to be living in apartment buildings, 4-plexes, 8-plexes? It just goes right back to the same thing. In the core area, it's super difficult to try to buy property, make it into 1-acre lots, and sell for single-family homes. It's not really happening. So the worry for me is that if we don't explore these opportunities to make it viable to make more single-family houses, we're going to wind up with more multifamily. There's a question about septics and what to do. Right now, if it had to be replaced in the future on a smaller lot, maybe tougher. Right now, we're given 10,000 square feet to do a usable septic area on each lot. I have to certify that each time, make that statement when we create a lot. But I'm only using about 1,000 feet or maybe 1,500 feet in a typical situation for a 4-bedroom septic system. So I used maybe a third of it, and I got room to put 2 more replacements. I noticed there's some language in there about, it was kind of arbitrary to me. They said something about 15 minutes per inch on the soils. They're trying to, I think the intent was to get to where in the tighter soils you'd need more area, and that's fine. I think 15 minutes is pretty arbitrary. Maybe that should be 30 minutes per inch, or just not even be in there, I'm not sure. Also, there was the question of who's going to police this. If you have an area for your well and another area for your septic, and it has to go the septic here and the well there, who is actually watching after that and policing it? And there was potentially a fine or something if it didn't go in there, but I think it said $1,000 fine the way it's written right now. Well, that's a small enough amount. If I'm building something, I can just say, well, it's only $1,000 for me to be able to put my septic wherever I want. Also, there's been many times in my career when I had a septic area or a well area, and I just couldn't make it fit in there. It was all good intentions at the beginning when they made the subdivision, but in the end, it didn't fit as well. And it was made more sense to swap things around, and we've done that. The shape, Kevin mentioned that you can't drive through the subdivision and notice that it's 30,000 square foot lots or 35,000 square feet. Mr. LaRusso said the same thing. When he's designing these lots, he makes the frontage more. So you could look at having a minimum frontage for these situations as well. Right now, there's a 3-to-1 shape requirement. I think the no more than 3 times as deep as it is wide in the front. You could change that to 2-to-1 or some other number. That's the comments that I had written down. And if anybody had a question, I'd be happy to take a stab at it.
You mentioned earlier about nitrates and there's being some issues within a couple of neighborhoods in the water. Is that something that a homeowner could purchase a reverse osmosis system to kind of alleviate and get that below EPA recommendations?
Through the chair, it's a good question. And I don't actually work with RO systems often enough to know the answer. My gut says yeah, but I wouldn't want to bank on that. Nitrates is typically a relatively difficult thing to treat for.
Any other questions?
My question to you is, you just made a comment about maybe mandating a minimum road width for these 30,000 square foot lots, where you know, you just, frontage, thank you, that's the word I'm thinking of. Would you speak more to that?
Okay.
Your thoughts on that?
Through the chair. So there are existing minimum frontage requirements. I think if it's not on a cul-de-sac, it's, I want to say 60 feet. And if it's on a cul-de-sac, it's 45 feet of lot line frontage on the right of way. So you could step that 60 feet, which so a lot that's only 60 feet on the front of it is going to be reverse pie shape and much fatter in the back to get to 30 or 40,000 square feet. So maybe a number of that a number could be increased to, I don't even know what a good number would be, but there are people that could figure that out in a few minutes. Maybe it'd be 80 feet or 100 feet, something along those lines. Or maybe it's 100 feet.
But right now it's 60, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's my memory's serving.
Any other questions? Nope.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Hi, I was hoping to say a few more things that popped in my head after I got done last time. A couple things. It was mentioned that the MEA puts service lines over leach fields, and that's true. They did that in the past. That has not been a policy for many years. MEA does not do that any longer. I know I'm on the MEA board, so it created a lot of issues. I have personally installed septic replacements where MEA lines have crossed over septic tanks and septic lines and septic fields, and we were able to make it work irregardless, but it wasn't fun. I can tell you one more thing that occurred to me was that, you know, there already is a code requirement in Title 43 to have, you know, show that you have 10,000 square feet of usable septic area on a lot before you divide it. We all know that. But there is no requirement that has to be protected, right? So it's been talked about, well, all these lots can have space to put more septic systems in later. I mean, absolutely they will, because that 10,000 square foot is protected on these lots versus on a 40,000 square foot lot, it's not. You know, you can't put a well within 100 feet of, you know, because it's all platted on these theoretical, hypothetical subdivisions. So I would argue that, you know, a 30,000 square foot lot that meets these requirements would actually have much more space to put in multiple septic systems than a 40,000 square foot lot that has no such protections from encroaching well radiuses. The other thing is, you know, a lot of people that are opposed to this regulation, and I can understand their concerns, think that, like, you know, if this gets passed by the assembly, you know, the next day there will never be another 40,000 square foot lot, that every developer is just going to start doing 30,000 square foot lots. You know, I've done some economic analysis on the additional cost of the engineering and then the additional decrease in valuation of a 30,000 square foot lot. And I just don't think that that's true. I think that there's going to be, you know, a lot of subdivisions where it makes more sense to do a 40,000 square foot lot than there is a 30,000 square foot lot. And also it's ignoring one really important thing that I think no one really has touched on, is that this is a zoning ordinance. It's going to modify single family residential zones, which means that every single one of these subdivisions would have to get approved by the Planning Commission and the Assembly. So, you know, you guys have talked about how people come in front of you and complain about the densification and, you know, undesirability of some of these subdivisions, and there's not really a chance to address that. You know, when you have a subdivision that to meet these requirements has to go in front of the Planning Commission, has to go in front of the Assembly, then there is an opportunity to address those things. And whereas in most Title 43 subdivisions, there's not that opportunity. Yeah, I mean, I would love to live in a community where everyone could afford and have a 5+ acre lot. But I think that it's much more important that people can afford to achieve the American dream and have a house than just be a renter for the rest of their lives. And you know, that's why I think that this is probably an important ordinance to pass. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other testimony? Is there anybody online? Nobody online? Close public testimony. Nobody's online. Close public testimony. Okay. Closing public testimony. And can entertain a motion from the board.
Where are we at? I didn't quite hear you. I apologize.
We're on resolution 26-01 and whether or not we want to approve that and send it to the assembly, that we're okay with this.
I can help you with that.
Okay.
I motion to approve and adopt this board's recommendation to the Matsu Borough for Planning Commission Resolution 25-18.
Actually, that's for, if you, on the screen I have the,
Oh, yeah,
there we go. That's that's this planning. That's just this resolution.
Did I say the wrong number? 2601.
It's 26.
Thank you. I said the wrong number. I apologize.
Got to get a second. It's just to bring it on the table. It doesn't mean you agree with it. It's just so we can talk about it. We can do that.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Liebing. Discussion.
Well, I am concerned about the water issue of things on that one, so I'm not happy at all with it.
I also think that there as part of the regulation change, there needs to be some clearer definitions about how the reduction to 30,000 square feet plays with the further reduction for open space and whether it's intended to be additive or not.
Thank you, Mr. Liebing. Chris?
I'm going to go on a diatribe here. My point of view of moving to Alaska was, of course, the open spaces like everyone else. But the idea that I was going to have fewer regulations to do what the heck I wanted. And by opening this up, Mr. Sumner brought up a good point. And the other developer, more choices. it doesn't mean overnight that we're going to have 30,000 square foot subdivisions come barreling through our plating board. Because there's extra costs with that. The developer's going to have to look at, do I want to pay an engineer to lay out the well and the septic for my 74 lots that I want to put in this subdivision? There's a lot of upfront costs with that. And in my experience being a fake developer and doing my little project, there are so many costs that I didn't realize and didn't account for. I can only imagine what these engineers are going to charge. So I don't think there's going to be a sudden march of 30,000 square foot subdivisions. I think these developers are going to analyze the economics of what's suitable and what is the land telling me I'm able to do with it. And what's economically viable? What is the market going to support price-wise with these different lots? So I like the fact that it gives developers another choice in how to develop land and how to make our borough prosper and expand, because we are going to expand. We're expanding greatly. I'm one of the people that made this place expand. I apologize. But I'm so happy to be here and I love it. So just another choice is the way I look at it. And people, when purchasing a house, they need to educate themselves on what they're getting themselves into. You know, coming from Florida, there's a lot of HOAs. People purchase their house and want to paint their house purple now. Well, no, the HOA says you can't do that. Well, I didn't know. Well, there was paperwork that told you you couldn't do that. You need to educate yourself. And once again, more choices. I think that's important.
Thank you, Chris. Any other discussion?
Go ahead.
Sandra?
I guess my biggest issue with this resolution is I think it is leaving out a lot of details. I find it way too vague. First off, I'd like to know where these single-family residential land use districts will be located across the valley. Is there a tree barrier size? You know, everybody, one of my biggest issues is when my neighbor clear cuts the trees right up to my property line. Is there going to be a mandated, you have to leave 10 feet? New neighborhoods these days tend to clear cut the whole 30, 40 acres. I have an issue with that. Joel was saying about the stump dumps. Can we dictate that the stump dumps have to be in the open space areas? There's just a lot missing. The concerns that people bring forward, I think there are solutions, and I would just like to see more of those solutions in this resolution. A little bit more strict rules to this thing. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think we already have methods in place to have 30,000 square foot lots. It's either a public well or a public septic system that a developer could put in. So in my opinion, they ought to have that's just my opinion. They ought to have public wells and public septics on anything 30,000 square foot or smaller. But right now it's one or the other. And personally, I think that's pretty adequate to get a 30,000 square foot lot.
Okay, so here's my 2 cents. Well, first I have a question just to verify. So I ended up reading the Big Lake Comprehensive Plan recently, and in that, it mentions that there's 1,100 lots that are under 20,000 square feet. That can have a private well and septic on it. Fred, would you know if that's accurate by chance?
Through the chairman, Fred Wagner, planning officer. That sounds correct. There are a lot of lots that were created prior to statehood, prior to the formation of the Mat-Su Borough, and prior to adoption of subdivision minimums and lot size. So we did find, you'll find that if you look around pretty much anywhere in Alaska, if you could fly there on a float plane pre-statehood or just right after after statehood, those lakes, almost all of them have subdivisions. You'll find quarter-acre lots around a lot of them. So a lot of the lots in the valley around lakes were subdivided prior to our regulations, and they don't meet our current standards. We do have, we consider those legal non-conforming lots because they were created prior to the regulation that did not make them legal. We have a whole section of code that tells us how we can subdivide them, we can combine them, we can take, as long as we are improving a non-conforming lot, we can fall it underneath that section of code so that it doesn't necessarily need to alleviate the situation completely. It just has to make it better. So let's say if they were combining 2 quarter-acre lots, we would allow it, though it didn't make a 40,000 square foot lot, it made it better. We're trying to do that. So there are some lots that do not conform to our current standards, but you can't create new lots today unless you follow one of the standards.
Thank you, Fred. So I'm not seeing, I live in Big Lake, and I'm not seeing the services. I mean, that's 1,100 lots, that's a lot. And we have issues with the roads. They're not being paved. They're not getting the services that they should get. There's people that have $1 million homes, and they're living on a dirt road. And it's been a long time. And in the Big Lake Comprehensive Plan, updated in 2009, it mentions these smaller lots and that they should be put on a community well and septic system. There hasn't been any progress, as far as I know, towards achieving that goal. Things take a lot of time, apparently, to move. I personally don't care if somebody wants to live on a 20-acre or 20,000 square foot lot. Preferably, they do it on a community well and septic system. And I would agree that this is very vague, and it needs more detail put into it. And nothing's going to be perfect. The borough even acknowledges this, the topography of the lands and the soils, and there's just so much to consider. There's no one uniform solution to make everybody happy. What that's going to look like, I really don't know. I'm not real comfortable with what's in front of us right now. I think it needs to be discussed more and added to. But yeah, that's what I have to say about it. Any other discussion?
Just another point you made me think of. I don't want that density, right? My personal opinion. I want to have as much acreage as possible. But that might not be your choice. That might not be your choice. By having a more condensed subdivision with more people living in a smaller area, economic growth is going to take place. It's more viable for different businesses, strip malls, whatever, to spring up in the area where some of these subdivisions are to offer more services, whether it's daycare, God forbid a Domino's, what have you. It's, a lot of times businesses can't go into an area and service the people within that area because there's just not enough people there. So, as we grow and these things get condensed, it's going to provide business opportunities to give services to these new communities that are a lot closer. Coming from Florida, and I'm not going to say hate, I dislike Florida and I don't like that lifestyle. But you could see in these planned developments, like the larger ones, when they build the development, there's a school there. There's private daycares going in. There's after-school karate, things like that, because there's a clump of people in one spot. And now a two family working home, or 2 husband and wife both working, have the ability to send their kids someplace after school, where these 5-acre lots, what do you do with a toddler? How do you pick them up? That's maybe not close to your home while you're working in Anchorage. So once again, I wanted to throw that out there, that's my thought, more options, making that available.
Further discussion?
I feel that, to add to what Chris was just saying, once we get a really good zoning and land use plan, we'll start seeing a lot more opportunities like that where it's planned. We need more plans. One other thing I wanted to bring up real quick was when we start talking about condominiums and multifamily developments, the well radius goes from 100 feet to a 200-foot well radius from well to septic. Therefore, when you were talking no, I was told by an engineer. Okay, all right, I'll stop talking then.
Further discussion? Seeing none, are we ready for the question then? Okay. Yeah, we're not ready to put any amendments into it. Madam Secretary.
If you guys fail this resolution, there will be nothing to go to the assembly. Your suggestion to not pass the ordinance will not go to the assembly. They won't have any info from you on your opinion on this.
Mr. Strawn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I know you're about to take a vote and everything. I do just want to have a conversation with you that I've had with the Planning Commission many times, that the way you communicate to the assembly is through resolutions. When you're making advisory recommendations on legislation, the way you communicate them is with resolution. So whether or not, so what the Planning Commission has done in the past is if they fail a resolution, then sometimes we would just write failed across the top of it and give it to the clerks and have them put it in the packet. They don't like that. What they really want is a resolution in the affirmative, whether it's saying, I don't like this ordinance or I do like this ordinance, something in the form of resolution in the affirmative should go to the assembly. So I'm just going to leave it at that. So if you are thinking about not supporting this resolution as is, I would recommend that you actually just modify the resolution to reflect what your actual opinions are on this ordinance.
Thank you. Okay, so if we were to find this agreeable, we would basically have to make amendments now that we want them to see? Or can we do that? Can we say, okay, we're okay with it and then come up with amendments to it at another time? It sounds kind of crazy maybe, but.
Yeah, so if I would say that if you do not support this resolution, that you could make modifications to the resolution that would say we have reviewed this, we do not support this ordinance, and for X reasons, X, Y, and Z. I would recommend doing something like that. You can just fail this thing, but if you were to fail this resolution, I would recommend that you adopt something, maybe make a new 26-02 that says what your opinions are on this ordinance and what your recommendation is for them to proceed.
Thank you, Alex.
And this kind of goes back to my statement at the very beginning. This was sent to us by the assembly. How deep of a rabbit hole do we go? We could be here for the better part of 3 months trying to satisfy everyone and everything and every idea. You know, do I see that as our duty to hash out every single problem that this board could come up with in order of figuring this out? Or is that on, let's hypothetically say it gets approved and then the assembly approves it, is it then in the mayor's hand to administer how all this gets done and how it's all figured out? Or does it fall in your lap? So I understand what you're saying. It's just like, I could think of 4,000 problems, and then after we hash out those 4,000 problems, I promise you I could think of 5,000 more of every scenario going down the line. If I do this, this happens. If I do that, that happens. But if it's Tuesday, this might happen. I just don't know really what we're being asked to do. Do they want us to look at this? Because if we say no, they still might vote on it, correct?
To the chair.
Mr. Stone?
Thank you. So regardless of what your recommendation is, the assembly will take this up. And you are being asked to review this ordinance. If you have things not related to this ordinance that you want to communicate within the resolution, you're welcome to do that too. You can say, here's what we think about the ordinance, and oh, and by the way, we also have this issue that we want you to address. It's up to you what you want this resolution to say. But what you're asked is right now is to review or to make recommendations based on the ordinance this is before you.
Can we postpone voting on this?
You sure can. So this goes back to the assembly, I believe,
March.
their second meeting of March, maybe
Yeah,
their
I think
first
so.
meeting. I'm not sure, but you do have all of February if you wanted to review it at a later meeting.
Okay.
Can we have a special meeting on just this that's outside our normal schedule to kind of workshop it?
We could.
Through the chair, thank you.
If the other
Red
board
line here.
members are agreeable.
Yeah, so I think it's an outline in code how we can call for a special meeting. Ms. Draxler can call for it herself, just outright, or I think it's 2 or 3 board members need to request it. So we can do a special meeting just for this.
Mr. Levy?
I would definitely suggest that we do that because to me, one of the issues, one of the challenges that I've had as a plating board member is once something is codified, we no longer can have an opinion on whether that is good or bad. All we're judging from that point forward is, does a plat meet the code or doesn't? We have a unique opportunity to have input on what that says. And I think we need to take full advantage of it with an issue this important.
I agree. So we're in agreement to have a special meeting? All right, sounds good to me. Do we need a motion for
Well,
that?
there's a motion on the floor about the resolution,
Okay.
right?
To postpone, so,
No, there is a motion on the floor to adopt the resolution. So I'm going to propose an amendment to that we postpone action until we can schedule a special meeting to discuss the details to be determined by staff and the chair.
is that a motion?
That is a motion.
I second.
Okay, we've got a second, beautiful. Okay, so we got a motion to postpone. Do we have to come up with a date right now? We do. Okay, so what date are we going to come up with?
We have a meeting on the 18th.
Yep.
Can everyone do it that morning? What are the dates you'll be gone?
No.
29th of February.
Do we have to have a public notice for that? Okay, so we got to go later.
What's the earliest date that we could do this with the time of the notice?
If I'm following that correctly, probably 2 weeks from this coming Monday. Not realistic to get 2 weeks from tomorrow, I don't think. So that would be the 2nd of February would be the earliest. We have a meeting on February 5th. We could try to do it earlier prior to this meeting, or we could do it on any other day leading up or thereafter.
I feel we should do it a day ahead of our regular plating board meeting. That way we can mull it over the night and then our meeting on Thursday the 5th would be more productive.
So that would be looking at Wednesday, February the 4th. Does that date tentatively work for everybody?
It works for me.
So that's
Does
what
that
we're looking
work
at
for
for
you
the
guys?
date specific. Mr.
I'm at your
Shaw,
beck and call.
any way on that? You got a lot going on. I haven't mentioned this, but I have jury duty starting February 2nd. So if I get called up.
Mr. Strawn,
So if you hope to have me there, I think I can make the 4th work, but I'm arriving at 4 a.m. from out of state. So if
So
you
you'll be
do
a
it
little
in the
loopy?
afternoon, I'd be better chance of being coherent. Yeah, right.
So are you suggesting like 1 o'clock in the afternoon?
I could do 1 o'clock in the afternoon on that Wednesday.
So I will clarify my amendment to read that we will postpone action until a special meeting, February the 4th at 1 p.m.
A second.
beautiful. So does everybody find that acceptable? 1 p.m., February 4th? Yes? Okay, it passes. No, we got one more thing. Okay, now we need to elect chair and vice chair. So nominations for chair.
I would nominate Ms. Traxler, who's done an excellent job for the last year.
Oh, thank you.
Second.
Oh, thank you. Any objections? No? I guess I got the job again. All right. So nominations for vice chair? Sandra?
I would like to nominate Amanda Salmon again. If she's still interested.
She's not here. She's
Right.
never here.
She's never here.
Okay, so I would object to that personally. I would nominate Michael Liebing.
I would second that.
Thank you. Any objections? No objections? You got the job.
Thank you.
All right. That was easy. Okay, plating staff comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fred Wagner, Planning Officer. We have 4 cases now. We originally had 3, but we did continue a case to February 5th. So we'll have 4 cases at the February 5th meeting, and we will work on scheduling the February 4th meeting. I will note that you're more than welcome to reach out to staff, to anybody for that matter, and get opinions on this. This being legislative, you're not falling under the same as a standard plating board or a plating board case. We're not quasi-judicial in this. So if you have questions for Mr. Strawn, for myself, for my staff, for Mr. LaRusso, you can speak to whoever you think you need to reach out to find out information. If people want to discuss this issue and try to sell you on their side or whatever, you can listen to this. You can engage in those conversations. So this is, I understand that this is something we don't normally do, and that's why we're not real comfortable with that. That's why we didn't, and I probably should have directed better that you can ask questions of staff. You could ask Mr. Strawn these questions prior to this meeting, and maybe we could have been better prepared to address adding whereases to this ourselves. I'm as much as blame and as pretty much just a little bit more experience than you guys have at it. So we don't do a lot of these. I think that it worked out pretty well. So thank you for your efforts. And Ms. Oliveira, Olivier, do you have anything? See, I got it right finally after getting it wrong.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Mr. Liebing, comments?
No comments here.
Mr. Burtz?
This is my last time here. Thank you, working with everybody. I have learned a tremendous amount. Got my butt chewed by the mayor and everybody else, but it's what it was. But I've enjoyed it, and my assemblyman requested that I seek out my replacement, and I have found a young man in Willow that is into real estate, very intelligent, much more than me, and good level head on him. I think he'll fit really good with this group and be an asset to it. So hopefully he'll get chosen. But anyway, once again, thank you for all that you taught me. But I've got too much on my plate, and this was one of the things I decided to kind of get off my plate. But the community of Willow demands me a lot. So I'll be working out there a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burtz. Ms. Krieger?
No comment.
Ms. McBride?
No comment.
Chris?
I guess a general question with our upcoming meeting, are we able to create a living document that we're all able to comment on and work on between now and then? No.
Nope. Open
Nope,
meeting.
that's why I asked.
Yep. Mr. Gilson?
I appreciate everybody's work on the board here, and it's fun to learn.
I think the meeting went well. It went better than I thought it was going to, honestly. So, yeah. With no further comments, this meeting is adjourned at 3:33 p.m.